Secretary of State, Rosanna Rosado. She was unable to be here today, and she felt very badly about that, but we're all here and we're ready to welcome the representatives of the Central New York Regional Economic Development Council. We as a panel are looking forward to hearing your presentation and to asking questions, and I'd like to introduce the SIAT, which is the Strategic Implementation Assessment Team, before we turn it over to you for your presentation. And we do have some new members, so please help me welcome Brian Stratton, who is the Director of Canals from the New York State Canal Corporation. Sabrina T., she's President and CEO of the Environmental Facilities Corporation. And I know we don't need any introduction here for Matt Driscoll.
Good morning.
Good morning. He's now the Acting Executive Director of the New York State Thruway Authority, formerly a Commissioner of DOT. And of course, Roberta Reardon, Commissioner of the Department of Labor. I don't think she's a stranger to anybody here. And we also have been joined by the Honorable Donna Lepardo, the Assemblywoman from the 123rd District. So we welcome Donna. So I don't think we have any other legislators here. We thought we might have some guests, but we don't. I would like to remind you that you have 30 minutes for your presentation, which will then be followed by a Q&A session. And I now invite you to make your presentation. And thank you very much.
So good morning. It's really a pleasure to welcome the members of the Strategic Implementation Assessment Team. I say it out since you may not be familiar with acronyms. And really, welcome to Syracuse. It's a pleasure to present to you some of the work that we've been doing over the past year as the Central New York Regional Economic Development Council. So this is the 7th time the representatives from Central New York have sat in front of you to present our progress from last year's and our plans for continued economic growth next year. So welcome to Syracuse, and you are sitting in the Tech Garden. And my name is Danielle LaRoccarina, and in my day job, I am president of SUNY Upstate Medical University. But my role here today is as co-chair, as you know, of the CNY REDC. I'm honored to present to you this morning alongside my colleagues. So to my right, probably does not need any introductions, but we will do the formal introductions. Rob Simpson, who's co-chair and president of Central State CEO, which is really our Chamber of Commerce. Randy Wolkin, to my left, who is president of Manufacturers Association of CNY. And to my right is Ricky Brown, Executive Director, Upstate Minority Economic Alliance. And then to my left is Brian Tobin, who is the mayor of Cortland. And to my right, actually the glue that moves all of this forward, Jim Fail. And truly, and the staff here and the teamwork that's required. Now, I don't have the time to say all of the members of the council, but please know that on our website, it is recognized the work that this team takes a team and leadership at the community level to do all of this. A CNY community, you know, is a vibrant region of 5 diverse counties, and I want to point out that you have projections here, but not to crink your neck, you also have projections in back of you in case you have difficulty looking forward here. Cayuga, Cortland, Madison, Onondaga, and Oswego. Native land to our indigenous nations and home to our urban, suburban, rural, and refugee populations. And we have an incredible talent pool to face some challenging times, which is what we're talking to you about. We should note that we are a region that has a concentration of colleges and universities, as well as a concentration of industries that offer the vitality that this region needs for brisk economic development and growth. Okay, that's what we are focused on. Unique to the REDC model and represented really in the leadership of our council leaders and our council members is the partnering of academia, higher education, health sciences, liberal arts, and industry to accelerate the progress of the 21st century in the areas of manufacturing, healthcare, financial services, transportation, and all the emerging clusters that we'll have the opportunity to talk to you about. That's the vibrancy of what you will feel as we talk to you. We're incredibly excited about our advancements that we will lay out during the next half hour, but want to highlight some themes that are important at the outset, and you'll see the continuity of those themes in our presentations. So this year, we are particularly focused on encouraging non-traditional projects into our project pipeline. We're very pleased in the enhanced responses we've received, and we'll be talking about some of those projects. And that's really important. If we're talking about economic development, let's not go only to the traditional sources. If we're going to change the landscape and revival of our communities, then it must be with the technical assistance and support to really draw out the talents that have been underrepresented. You'll hear that as a theme. Accelerating the URI investments in 2017, so many URI investments, and really begin to take off. And I was told, not a pun, to take off, and you'll hear about our unmanned systems. Measuring our impact, right? At the end of the day, we could have lots of talk, but if we don't measure our impact in the community economically and economically spread equally through all our communities, we will have failed. So Rob will talk about this later in the presentation, but we're beginning to see the impact of some of these investments and are making some of the top-line economic indicators, such as regional exports and wages, really his area of expertise, and many others on the council. And then being realistic about our challenges, but not deterred, okay? That's really important. While some regional economic indicators are showing promise, we remain rooted in the reality when it comes to many of our core regional challenges, such as our poverty. You have heard this theme before. We rank, unfortunately, among 100 cities around the country, first in concentrated poverty in African American Latino communities. That is not a statistics we want to hold on to, and we have got to be absolutely committed to meeting that challenge and changing the landscape, okay? Segregation and stagnant population growth. We have to look at the demographics in the 21st century and then map out the strategies to address those. So finally, an editorial comment, Howard Zemsky often talks about the Buffalo Billions in terms of its ability to change the culture in a community. That takes time, that takes investment, that takes people sitting together and talking together. In 2017, we've started to see the seeds of that, and I've been here a year and a half in this community, although I'm a New Yorker, a lifer in New York. It really is the collective work of the folks here that have moved that needle forward in changing the way we approach things, a collective psyche, and you'll hear about that. Collaboration, coordination, efficiency, a focus on what is good, okay, and a passion are needed to achieve the potential of our region for all populations. So we have much work to do, and I'm going to keep moving and keep talking fast since we have half hour. Okay, so thank you. Very good. Here we go. If we can. All right, that would be, let's see, maybe it's upside down. Yes, it was. Okay, so here, this is Central New York, and I've just talked to you about that. So let me focus here very quickly. Since the launch of the REDC process, our region has seen much success in implementation of the Council's plan, and it includes capital projects, long-term strategic initiatives, and most recently, the implementation of the UI winning plan, CNY Rising. And I know you've heard a lot of this, so I'm going to move through this fairly quickly. From the beginning, our efforts have been guided by three underlying goals that you see represented here. Strengthening targeted industry concentrations that leverage unique economic assets. The region is investing in projects that will produce jobs, economic activity, focus on industries that are deeply interconnected. But let me say a little bit about that. You know, the reason the RDC model can work is because it's community-based, okay? It's harnessed by the energies of folks who live here, who care about this, and I'll show you where I live just down the street shortly, is that we need to look at that community-based approach to economic development, and we should also learn important lessons along the way. So we're going to evolve every year we present to you. We're going to have key lessons, okay? And we need to challenge ourselves to continuously grow our vision, right? So I'll give you an example. Are we leveraging all of our assets? You'll hear a lot about unmanned systems, et cetera, and that focus. But I just had a conversation around some of the academic strengths. Agricultural industry is important. Are we partnering? Are we putting the right partners together to really accelerate that progress? For example, SUNY Morrisville, okay, has absolutely the pipeline of the next generation of folks who are going to address agricultural issues that relate to health, okay? We have communities that are, you know, have issues such as obesity and health problems, well, you know what? Good food is a good solution to that, and we can produce it here. Improving competitiveness and connections to the regional, national, and global economies will continue to build on our region's innovation, strength, et cetera. You know, we are in a global economy. Yes, we can focus community-based, but we better have a view of the world and understand how we can leverage those strengths. Finally, revitalizing our region's urban cores, main streets, et cetera. If we don't do good at home, let's stop, because if we are not faithful to the communities where we live, then we have failed everything. And so we are focused on the investments that will develop our municipal centers, and it's so good to have you here because we're going to walk the streets with you and show you a few things and how we're investing in our communities. Okay? So the next is very briefly, this is like speed talk, all right? That I'm going to point to you. Let's see if I have a pointer. Yes, very good. Okay, so implementation projects and initiatives both in and outside of the CFA funding process. So the first slide, advancing the 3 goals I just talked to you about. Every project that we have recommended over the course of the past 5 years and that has received funding is highly strategic in advancing our plan. And we are seeing success and progress in the implementation of the plan and execution of priority projects, and I want to point this out. So if you look here, okay, jobs. So we have jobs created here, 1488. We have more than 1,400 new jobs created. 72%, these 2 pies, complete and on schedule. 72% of those projects fall into those 2 pies. And more than, here, 1.27, all right, plus billion in private investments have been leveraged. That's the beginning of monitoring our success. And the next one, all right? And it's magnified when you look at all CFA projects awarded funding since year 1, with more than 2.34 billion in private investments that are leveraged. And this represents in the pie here, these 2, 79% of those projects are completed or on schedule, all right, right? So we hold our feet to the fire and say, are we getting it done? Then we are proud of our track record of success with these projects and our efforts to collaborate with the state and private business community to leverage public funds awarded for the greatest impact. And then I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Rob Simpson, who will take you through some more discussions.
Good morning. Just a brief editorial note, there's a lot of different checkpoints throughout the year with the Regional Council. Today happens to be my favorite of all the roles that we get to play. I know some people think it's the day that we go down to Albany and get to stand with the governor and receive a big check when we're successful. In fact, my philosophy is that today's actually the day that we win the award every year. It's when we have a chance to talk to you about the work that we're doing, to share with you some of the challenges that we're facing, to show you that we understand our work enough to be honest about what's working and what's not, and to prove to you that we are not only being diligent on implementation, but that we have a vision for the future that we're not going to stop until we achieve the success that we want for our community. I'm going to walk through a couple of examples of some of the success that we've had over the first few years with the Regional Economic Development Council. This is a project that I know we're all particularly proud of, rapid response monitoring. This was a round 2 project. This is a construction of a significant expansion of an existing workplace in the city of Syracuse, adjacent to the Inner Harbor. And Brian certainly knows how much emphasis and priority we've placed as a community for more than a decade or 2 on the redevelopment of that harbor area. Here's a private employer who has followed the lead of the state and the investments the state has made in redeveloping that area, who has not only pledged to create retain 325 jobs, but created 175 new jobs. The company has met their job creation threshold ahead of schedule. This is a perfect example of a company that's done the right thing. They got a small award from the state, some tax credits and some grants, and they have exceeded their job creation thresholds in an area, by the way, that is immediately accessible to some of the most vulnerable populations in our city. So those are jobs that are available to people, not only accessible via bus, but also accessible via walkability from certain neighborhoods in town. This is a project that's having a dramatic impact on the Inner Harbor area. Second project I want to draw your attention to is actually a great success story coming out of the Syracuse Technology Garden. 4.5, 5 years ago, Ascension Gaming, otherwise known as tcgplayer.com, was a virtual tenant here in the Technology Garden. About 4 or 5 employees working out of a remote location, really struggling over the course of 10 years to develop a sustainable business model. Today, TCG Player is one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing company in Syracuse. They graduated out of their virtual tenancy in the Tech Garden about 3 years ago, and they are right now in the process of finalizing a lease for 60,000 square feet of new space about a block and a half down the road, which had always been part of our vision at the Technology Garden, was to incubate and accelerate these companies and then let them fill some of the vacant space in the heart of our city. They have blown through their job creation estimates where they had pledged to create 88 new jobs. Today that company employs over 210 people, and all that growth has happened over the course of the last 3.5 years. It's an incredibly exciting company. They're generating wealth from not only all over the country but all over the world, and their headquarters is here, a locally grown company that's going to stay local and continue to grow local. Another important project out in Cayuga County, SIDEC. This was a very nice project, an example of the diversity of businesses that we fund through the Regional Economic Development Council. This company supports the manufacturing and the agribusiness sectors, did a significant expansion, 15,000 square feet of their warehouse and their facility, created 7 new jobs, retained 27 jobs, and is playing a really important role in helping to support some of the more rural components of our region as well. One of the things that we try to emphasize with each of you every year when we have the opportunity to communicate with you directly about what's happening here is to try to drive home the point that our work on the Regional Council is not just about projects. And I know that's the most visible component of the councils. Hundreds of applications come through the council process every single year. We review those as diligently as we can. We receive funding for them, and then we work with them throughout the year to make sure they stay on schedule. But underlying the projects, as Dr. LaRoccarina said, is a fundamental strategy to which each and every player in our economic development and academic and business ecosystem is aligned. They've been involved in the process of creating that strategy, and in the moments when we are not working on specific projects, we are working to advance that strategy on a daily basis. Danielle laid out our 3 goals, so I just want to speak to some of the strategic elements that are going on in each of those 3 areas. One area where we're tremendously excited by the growth potential is in the area of unmanned systems, and we've been very, very fortunate to have a strong collaboration with our partners in the Mohawk Valley for years and years on this. Lucky to have the governor over at the former Griffiths Air Force Base just a couple of weeks ago for a very high-profile announcement 2 weeks ago, and ultimately have another announcement that we'll be making later today about continued growth and leadership in this sector. We have built and are building a one-of-a-kind corridor for the testing of unmanned systems here in upstate New York, from Syracuse to Rome. There is nothing like it in the world. It's being driven by our private sector partners. It's being supported and led and catalyzed by state investment, and it is attracting attention from people around the globe, and that is a really important and powerful thing for us here in Central New York. We're not only doing it at the large scale, working with some of the biggest companies in the world, in some cases Fortune 5, Fortune 10, Fortune 100 companies that are participating with us, but we're also supporting through the Genius New York program innovation and startup activity, specifically around unmanned systems. We've done 1 round of the Genius New York program. We're in the process of finishing it up. Second round of the program, we've just received over 268 applications for that program from around the world. And we'll be bringing a new class, 6 new startup businesses from around the world to Syracuse starting in January of next year. Very, very exciting. And aligned with some of those strategies, some key investments that I just want to focus on in target industry sectors. These 4 projects you see up here, Tessie Plastics, Welsh Allen, Saab Defense, and JMA Wireless, combined represent more than 700 new jobs here in Central New York. And when the governor laid out his vision for the Upstate Revitalization Initiative, the one thing that sticks in my mind from the conversations we had with him throughout the year was to think big. And 700 new jobs for Syracuse and Central New York and our 5-county region is a big impact on employment. These are high-paying jobs. These are jobs that support families. These are jobs that are exactly the kinds of growth that we want to see and stimulate here. And not only are they great jobs, but Saab Defense earlier this year named Syracuse its North American headquarters for its defense and security business. That is a big deal because as they begin to grow in the United States, they win more and more contracts with the federal government, that growth is going to roll up to Syracuse and Central New York. And getting a headquarters designation for a community in a region like ours is a really significant win. Two, as it relates to our global competitiveness and innovation, just a couple of highlights. I know that the governor's been at the forefront of encouraging, through programs like the Global New York program, for New York State businesses to do more work internationally. I think you all know that we've been at the vanguard of this work with the Brookings Institution for years and years. And I am really proud of the fact that we actually saw 3% export growth in 2016, one of a very few small number of northeastern metropolitan areas where there was actually export growth in 2016. In most every other metro across the country, there was actually shrinkage in the exporting due to a number of large-scale economic and demographic factors. The fact that we're able to grow in a very difficult environment, I think, suggests that our strategy is paying off. We have dedicated service providers that are working with businesses in agriculture and high-tech and manufacturing to take their products international, including opportunities like the Singapore Air Show, where we'll have 6 or 7 companies from Central New York on the ground selling to foreign customers in that particular venue. And finally, and can't stress this enough, the work that we do on our urban cores and our neighborhoods, so incredibly important. We're very proud of some of the programs that we've piloted here. These are independent of the regional council. These are dollars that are being supported by philanthropy, by some of our partners like SUNY Upstate Medical and others. These are programs that are being supported by the Upstate Minority Economic Alliance, programs like Upstart and Work Train, that are really attempting to reach into our traditionally disadvantaged populations and lift people up out of the crushing poverty that we have here in Central New York, to really fundamentally make the connection between business, and let's face it, what business needs most to thrive is they need employees and people, and what people need most to thrive are jobs, and that connection is something that we're very intentional about working to make. So, round 7, I think we are, as you can tell, we're very excited and proud of the work that we've done to this point. We know we need to work harder and we need to work faster. Every place, every part of this, our global economy is chasing prosperity, and we have a lot of competition out there in the market. So everything that we want to talk to you about this year is about sort of putting the foot on the gas pedal, if you will. We have recommended in this year's round 38 total priority projects. All told, retaining 2,216 jobs, creating 582 new jobs, and we are very excited about the list of projects that we have sent to you today. To talk about some of those specific projects, please have my colleague and our council member Randy Wolkin here to talk about them.
Thanks, Rob. So I'll briefly hit just 4 projects and then pass it on to the other presenters to talk about additional projects in this round. So very exciting, both investments, both in jobs retention, jobs retention, and of course direct new jobs here. You'll see this one here at Courier Plastics, which is in Cuyahoga County, which really supports the expansion of this exciting advanced manufacturing industry, innovative process investment here, and of course accessible jobs to the urban core, which is so critical to the overall plans that we continue to have in this community and many others. A wonderful project that in many ways the next project supports the agribusiness initiatives. This is a large job creator. As you can see, it doubles the current workforce while retaining jobs as well. It's a significant investment. It really helps us create commercial food processing, packaging in a distribution center in Cuyahoga County, which really focuses on health-conscious foods. Again, a magnificent project in this round for us. Marquardt switches, which you, if you've been in this community for any time, have seen there's significant and tremendous growth in our community. This advanced manufacturing has designated their global technology center right here in our communities. We're pretty excited about this for Madison County and our entire region. It really is a direct foreign investment, foreign-owned business. It bolsters our global New York and our foreign direct investment opportunities. And they want to focus on in-house training, in-house workforce training. which keeps them moving forward and keeps our community moving forward. The Fulton Group, another great project, investing in innovative manufacturing technologies, some clean technologies here. It leverages the increase in R&D activities, and again, supports our all-important export initiative. Retained jobs here is quite significant, especially for this community in Oswego County, as well as the new job creation going on in this outstanding industry. This is just a sampling of the great projects in this round, and I will now pass it on to my colleague, Ricky.
Thank you. I want to talk about some of the efforts that we've made with Center State CEO in getting involved with some of the strategic principles and the goals involved with number 3. Oh, I'm going to advance the slide. And that is home headquarters, neighborhood, place-based economic development, revitalization. This project will involve the transformation of 6 underutilized properties in 3 distressed neighborhoods in Syracuse. The project will include development of 2 buildings on the city's north side into a food hub, 1 building consisting of a warehouse and a catering service. I've been fortunate to work as part of the Upstart program, a program we've involved many entrepreneurs in. To date, more than 60 have graduated from that program. We continue to work with those entrepreneurs and have a great deal of success. This project in particular is of importance. We've had a great development in anchor partner and Price Right, a project that was built there where there was a food desert located in this community for more than 50 years. The impact on there has been tremendous, and we look to grow from that project there. And now I'll pass it on to my colleague, Rob.
Great. So, just as we do every year, we want to be very transparent with you about our dashboard, where we see opportunities for improvement, where we see great progress. I think we're very proud of the fact that almost all of these metrics are moving in the right direction. We're also candidly embarrassed, frustrated, and disappointed in the fact that despite progress in almost every single one of these areas, our regional poverty rate continues to deteriorate. This is a situation that, as we have talked about at our regional council, we understand that as business and community leaders, we have a responsibility to ensure that we are working towards helping to alleviate and solve those problems, to bringing business and neighbors into greater contact with one another, to breaking down some of the systemic barriers to economic opportunity that exist, not only in our community, but in communities across the country. Largely, this is a good news story for Central New York in terms of our high-level economic performance, but we'd be remiss if we didn't speak to the very real human conditions that are impacted by poverty. We also just want to draw your attention on the population side. As you know, it's very difficult to get true population estimates outside of true census data. Actually, a lot of anecdotal positive evidence on the population side, including the fact that recent census estimates show that we are seeing for the first time in more than 2.5 decades an increase in the 18 to 25 population in our community, which is a sign that as we've been working year after year after year to combat the brain drain that has afflicted our community for so long, that we're finally making some inroads in that very important area. A couple of key initiatives that I just want to draw your attention to. I think in this year's report, we were asked to do a number of new things, including putting together a life sciences strategy. We also have a new strategy that we've identified and developed around talent and workforce development that we'll speak to. You've certainly heard us all speak to the need to do more and better work around economic inclusion and those connections to economic opportunity for our entire community. And we're also very, very proud of the fact that we have Mayor Tobin here to speak to this year's winning Downtown Revitalization Initiative community, Cortland, New York. So with that, I will turn things over to Danielle.
Yes, it's just a few minutes that we have left in our presentation. Keep going. Yeah, that's right. I'll try to swallow my words. Yeah, just to point out that we welcomed a few new initiatives. The life science one really leverages what we have as a strength in terms of our colleges and universities and strongest opportunities to increase this area of focus. 45,000 people, 15% of our employment base is in the healthcare industry. So how do we leverage that? I don't have the time to go over many of these with you. I'm not going to read out the strategies here that you see. But the reason that's important is because many communities have really leveraged the colleges and universities, and here the focus on healthcare is critical, and we have the opportunity to create those pipelines and to build that. So again, take a look at pages 101 to 117 in your final report that actually details, and it's incredible, the industries as well as the educational health services assets that we have here. We need to tell our story and to push that and to really take a look at this and the pipeline for those. So I'm going to move it next to, back to Rob.
So one of the major things that we're hearing from employers right now as our economy continues to grow is the significant pressure on our labor pool, and this is something we've talked with the commissioner about quite extensively at every level, everything from low skill to the most high-tech jobs and employment. We have a talent task force that we've developed as part of the regional council process this year, actually led by the CEO of TCG Player, the fastest growing company in town, who is struggling to identify and recruit the absolute best talent to fuel what is a rapidly expanding business. He and about a dozen other business and academic leaders throughout our region are participating in that task force and will be coming back to us within the next 6 months with some strategy recommendations about what we can do to ensure a greater pipeline of not only talent development within our community, but also recruiting key skills outside of our community to help us continue to grow and build our population base here in central New York.
Why did he go back to? There we go.
There we go.
Rob, we're over the time, but I know that we want,
We've got about 5 more minutes. Is that okay?
yes,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Rick?
Just really quickly, I'll take about 1 minute and talk about one really important key initiative, and that's the Alliance for Economic Inclusion. This was a $30 million for the AEI, will be utilized to support projects and strategies designed to ensure regional economic growth translates into economic opportunity within the region's distressed communities. For my community in particular, that means that the projects that normally had not been considered have come before the council, and we've had a great deal of success with having some of those projects approved now. Now passing over to Mayor Tobin.
Thank you.
Thanks for that 30 minutes.
It'll take me negative 2 minutes. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. As you can see, when we talked about a culture of success with our downtown, we talked about 3 main concepts: building the creative economy, creating a complete downtown neighborhood, and reimagining infrastructure for the 21st century. Sorry for the slowness with the slides. But the idea was we have some general goals, and then to get there, we had to do several things. So we have what was requested, a very compact downtown. This is a piece in terms of the larger plan for what we have for our community. So as you look at the darkly shaded area, if you look to the right and to the bottom, we are also pursuing a BOA and working on our brownfield opportunity area. And we actually had startup meetings about that 2 weeks ago. The purple line up top, the Clinton Avenue Gateway, I'll speak more about that. In terms of leveraging investment, we put in an application for a $1.5 million investment in terms of a parking deck. Well, if we're able to get an investment in terms of apartments and a hotel as well, we're looking at potential for a couple million with regards to the hotel and 20 million for the apartments. No DRI money in terms of the apartments. And the reason why is we're looking at student housing. And in the city of Cortland, the student housing market is fairly lucrative. So we don't see the need to invest in that. But if it is invested and created, we have to do something about the parking. So the Northeast Gateway and Clinton Avenue Corridor Enhancement Project, this is another key component. We have secured approximately 6 of the $12 million. Matt Driscoll has probably gotten bored of speaking with me so much because of some of the issues and some of the requests that we've had. And in terms of the Gateway block redevelopment, we're looking at potentially leveraging to increase opportunities with regards to jobs. A hotel, even a small hotel, would bring approximately 40 to 50 jobs to the community. But we have several other investments that we're looking to make as well. So really quickly, I'll give you a rundown in terms of what our proposal had for different investments. Mixed use, upper story development of buildings, we're looking at about 1.3 million. And we have some buildings that have been vacant in their upper stories for close to 50 years. They become a hazard not just to themselves, but to the buildings that are in good shape. 2.1 million going to arts and entertainment, and we want to create a holistic community where people can live, play, and work.
$750,000 going to business growth, the Cortland Beer Company and the local food market, which specializes in organics. And these are both businesses that have been recently established. The parking structure I mentioned, energy efficient projects and high-speed Wi-Fi over $600,000, with the idea of becoming a more green community and helping businesses by helping them be more green. Job connection and innovation centers. We got a couple of different things. I've been sitting in on our local committee that's been speaking about the Alliance for Economic Inclusion, and we're really grateful that Onondaga County took the lead on that, and we see that as being a way to play in to several other programs. We'll do some streetscaping, branding, and when you look at it, if you're pretty good at math, you'll see that the original proposal was over 12 million, and obviously 10 doesn't equal 12, but we are going forward knowing that it was a competitive process, and moving forward, it will stay a competitive process. And it has moved forward very quickly. The governor came in, gave us the check Friday, October 6th. Jamie Reppert from the Department of State called me the next business day after Columbus Day, and within 24 hours, we were meeting with consultants, and we have a team put together, and our first local planning committee meeting will be Thursday. Within 2 weeks, we've come a long way, but we went into this knowing that we were going to compete to win, and that if we were to win, when we won, we were going to be ready to go. So we will have a great product ready in March when the process wraps up. It will be a very open process, and we will have the opportunity for everybody to look and say, Cortland did it right, not just for downtown, but for Central New York and New York State. And I'd be remiss if I did not mention, we're also starting to look at the horizon. An issue that's coming up, and this is where the economic development component for the Alliance is important, is childcare. And I know that in Cortland, our childcare centers are starting to experience some issues, and I foresee this council is having that discussion hopefully in the next couple of years.
Great.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you
As you-
very much.
As you can tell, just in wrapping up, we are incredibly proud of the work that we do. It's hard to put everything that you've worked on throughout the course of a year into a 30-minute presentation. I appreciate your patience. This is truly a labor of love for those of us on the council, not just the projects, but throughout the year, trying to move this community forward. This is where we live. We want this place to thrive. Without your collective support and the support of the governor, we would have a much more difficult time, and truly we're grateful for the support you all have provided. On a personal note, I will just say the old adage, if you love something, set it free. Today will be one of my last official acts as the co-chair of the Central New York Regional Economic Development Council. After 6.5 going on 7 years, it's time for new leadership. I couldn't be more excited that my colleague Randy Wolkin has agreed to step into that role and to provide some continuity from the business leadership perspective alongside Dr. LaRocca-Arena. This has been a phenomenal process. I've personally felt privileged to be able to participate in this and steer the kinds of investment that we have here in Central New York, almost $1 billion over 7 years to projects that are moving this community forward. I'm going to remain involved in the work. I'm going to remain on the council, but I truly am grateful not only to each of you, certainly to the governor, but most importantly to the regional council members that are here and that do the hard work. There are many of them who are in the audience today. Each and every one of them works so hard to improve this region, and I'm just very grateful for the support you provided to this council, to the governor, and to me personally. So thank you all very much. Thank you. We're eager to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Dr. LaRocca-Arena, for that great presentation. Rob, thank you on behalf of the RABC, the staff, the governor. Thank you for your service. I've known you since you were a young child.
Be hi to a grasshopper, right?
But you have really brought strong leadership to this region, and I know that Randy will continue that we will have consistency and growth and progress. So
Thanks,
you've
Ron.
laid the foundation. So thank you for your service, and we appreciate it. I just want to say, and I was going to say it before, I think it was in 2012 we came to Tech Garden is on a tour, and it's amazing the transformation that has been made here. So this is wonderful, and the fact that you're growing someone out already, if not many more, that's a tribute to all of your leadership here in the Central New York area. So thank you very much for that presentation, and we are looking forward to the tour. But before we go on the tour, I'm going to ask my SIAT members to ask some questions, and I'm going to start with Brian Stratton.
Thank you very much, Roanne. I too want to join with Roanne's comments and thank our co-chairs, Dr. LaRock, Rena, and Rob Simpson for your tremendous leadership and that great report. Rob, thank you for your service. I've had the opportunity to work with you on our projects for the past several years, and you've done a great job, and we thank you for your service, Randy. We look forward to working with you. I also want to take the opportunity to congratulate Mayor Tobin and in the city of Cortland on your tremendous DRI win. Commissioner Driscoll and I, as former mayors, are from the days when there wasn't $10 million out there to win. So we are envious of you, and we know that you're going to do great things. And certainly, on behalf of the Canal Corporation, it's always great to be here in the Syracuse Central New York area, where we just last month wrapped up the 2017 World Canals Conference. And I want to thank you on behalf of the Erie Canalway National Heritage Corridor for the 2015 support that you provided to bring that tremendous conference here over 5 days, 400 delegates from 14 countries, 3 continents, 20 states, and 5 provinces. They were absolutely wowed by what we have shown. And I also want to acknowledge the presence of our honorary chair and your fellow REDC member, Dr. Neil Murphy. Thank you, Dr. Murphy. After all of that, I do have a question. And your report says that since 2007, the number of people actually living in the downtown Syracuse area has grown by 67%. And I'm wondering what you attribute that to, other than your great work.
Any of us can jump in,
I'll start, but I'm sure others will have something to contribute. It is truly a product of an intentional strategy that this community has had, starting under the leadership of then Mayor Driscoll, to position downtown Syracuse as a hub for urban living, culture, and commerce. We were very intentional starting about 12 years ago at focusing on residential conversions of some of our older and underutilized property in downtown. That has not only relieved some of the pressure on the commercial market, but has turned downtown into a rapidly growing neighborhood. Actually, one of the fastest growing census tracts in the entire Central New York region is downtown in the lakefront here in Syracuse. Frankly, it has been so successful that when the next census comes out in 2020, downtown Syracuse will no longer be classified as a distressed census tract, which it has been for the better part of the last 3.5 decades. That is great.
Yeah, I want to add to that. From a personal note, I don't have the depth of experience of this community that the folks around me have. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an external look, but also now I think I'm part of the community after being here a year and a half, and my husband and I joined this community. First of all, what was evident from downtown is history, okay? So the buildings, when you look at this and you get a feel for the community, and I go a lot by feel. Yes, I'm data-driven, but I go by feel. And what was clear is that when I came in October of 2015, or I was appointed as president here, September of 2015, between then and now, which is about 2 years, I can tell you I've seen absolute movement forward. And I saw a vision of preservation. So the things that we can do badly is to not preserve our history. And there is such history here, the Underground Railroad, the kinds of activities here. And looking at it, the building that I live in, which was the Old Days Brothers building. I know I'm giving away where I live, but please don't. All right? You know what was retained is the architecture outside. And then it was renovated inside. And then we've had ongoing conversations. How do you make a walkable community that actually attracts folks and we need to address all demographics, right? So that we certainly want to have, if you look at the demographic shift, is that you have the geriatric population actually growing, and unfortunately a pediatric population, which by the way is from 0 to 25, okay, for those of you, the brain continues, is not growing. How do we, through technology, universities, colleges, also take a look at how we bring that population back here with the enthusiasm that I think is palpable here? And you must have walkable communities, you must have grocery stores that we talked about, you must have access to clean water and clean food, vegetables, et cetera, to have a healthy community that then uses its brain power and stays. Now, that's not sufficient. So I know the DRI now has gone to Portland, and we were the beneficiaries of that. But we must extend beyond that, and the communities around us have said, don't finish with downtown. Make sure you're looking around. And we have lots of challenges ahead, but we are focused on bringing people here. We opened the Syracuse, the Marriott open, which is just, what excitement. It wasn't open when I came. It's now open. And the folks who really know this well know how to target the businesses that need to grow so that people can see vitality. It just has to be infectious. The buzz about the city has to be infectious, and that's what we've done. So I'm giving you a personal view of this because it's palpable, we feel it, and we have young people coming, and older people too, like me, okay, coming and saying, yeah, this is great to be here.
I just want to draw one parallel back to state policies, and this is part of the value of these collaborations. 6.5 going on 7 years ago, Governor Cuomo signed into law one of the most aggressive state historic preservation tax credits anywhere in the country. That policy tool has been a big part of our success in downtown Syracuse. That policy tool is set to expire in January of 2019, and one of the things that we will be advocating strongly for is for the governor in his executive budget to put forward a reauthorization of that historic tax credit so there is no lag or lapse in the program. It's not just important to downtown Syracuse and our neighborhoods, but it's important to every city in upstate New York. That tool has been a critically important piece of knitting the fabric of our communities back together.
Thank you. Sabrina?
Sure. Thank you again for everything that you've done. It's actually really interesting. So one of the things I know that you've talked about is the whole idea of the sector of advanced manufacturing. And by your own admission in the report that you sort of say progress in that area has been uneven, I think is the word that you used. I was just wondering if you could just talk a little more about where you've identified why that might be the case and what your strategies are for addressing those issues moving forward.
Sure. I'll start the conversation. What we're seeing, quite frankly, is a renewed opportunity. I think more recently, over the last 5 years, where we're seeing, and you saw just a few of the projects that are reinvesting. It is often a difficult climate, a global climate, to make manufacturing progress and technology investments. And even the 4 projects I outlined are all technology-based. So I think we have a renewed opportunity in upstate New York. You're seeing it in Buffalo, seeing Rochester, throughout upstate, for jobs to grow here. And I think the most exciting projects are often foreign direct investment. And when you've seen many companies who said, let's do it in central New York, let's do it in New York, let's put millions of dollars at risk and, quite frankly, to invest. And so I think we have a huge opportunity in upstate. We're seeing it across the state. But now it's starting to come to fruition. And part of that is that more and more companies want to be in the United States for a lot of the right reasons. I don't know if most people know this, but over the last 5 years, the U.S. became and is projected to be the #1 low-cost manufacturing country in the world. Because, quite frankly, it's not about low-cost labor anymore. It's about high-quality labor. It's about great technology, literally cobots working next to you without cages. And quite frankly, there's a tremendous opportunity in a high-tech environment for us to succeed. You don't have to be a low-cost state anymore to be successful. That has been a dramatic change in the global economy. So I'm quite optimistic. We've made a lot of investments. I see a lot more possibility coming down the pike, and part of that has been the shift in how manufacturing is done. And also the kinds of companies that are in the technology business today. Who would have guessed Tesla would be the highest market value car company now in the world because of technology, investments, restarting. So I think we have huge opportunities, and my sense is in the past of unevenness is a part of what used to be manufacturing. I'm now talking about, and worldwide we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution, biomedics, nanotechnology. So I think we have a chance for a reset both here and throughout the world, actually.
Thank you. Matt Driscoll?
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Again. So let me just start off. I just want to say thank you. Congratulations as well. I actually had an opportunity to work with Rob before there was even an REDC. So he has been a leader in this community for many years. I know that will continue going forward as well. So thank you for your service, and Mayor, congratulations. Big award for the city and you. I know you'll do great things with that. So my question really, not only as a SIAT member, but I have to say as a resident of Central New York, goes to the poverty issue. As you framed it, a crushing issue of poverty. I know unemployment rates seem to be dropping, and that might be due to people leaving the workforce. However, it doesn't appear that people are leaving the region. So the concern and the question is how are we, what is the pipeline that we're looking at for people with lower skill sets or medium skill sets, if you will, to be able to find job opportunities? One little story, I ran into somebody last night who's been in business 35 years here, and they said to me that they're having difficulty finding people to work. And I know that there's people out there who are looking for employment. So I think it's a big issue. So if you could frame for me, I know you mentioned the talent task force, that seems to be for higher skill sets, but what are we doing? What are we targeting? How are we creating that pipeline for folks that may not have that skill set?
Maybe.
You want to start?
Sure.
I will chime in.
Sure. A number of programs that we've developed. So the Upstart program is a program, for example, that's a pipeline for entrepreneurs. But along those lines, there are a number of training programs throughout the community that are working on soft skills. Jubilee Homes and a number of collaborations with Center State and so on have created a pipeline to involve those to address some of those deficiencies. One of the things that I noticed in my work with working with minority and women-owned business enterprises for most of the last decade was identifying the fact that, one, in order to qualify for some of the contracting opportunities that we're here, for example, we needed to certify. Just as simple as going through a procedural, going through and making sure that you were there. So identifying where those deficiencies are within the community. When those companies are propped up, for example, we walked in February with 3 or 4 companies that had revenues of over $50 million a year. If those companies had access to more subsidies and so on and so forth to be able to employ a larger workforce and develop that workforce, they were not keen on what subsidies were available through the state for expanding their opportunities. For example, we had a number of businesses that are centered on the South Side would like to employ more, but simply did not know about that process. I think we've done a tremendous job since that time of involving more of the community. We have a number of representatives in one, and as a matter of fact, that was awarded through this process, process. So it takes some diligence. We had to get the word out throughout the community. I think with the establishment of the Upstate Minority Economic Alliance, we plan to be that vessel for this, these state projects and so on, and spreading that word throughout the community and building that workforce. One key, last thing I'd like to point out is one initiative that we're going to undertake under the Alliance for Economic Inclusion is the building of an apprenticeship program. We've got our first minority-owned business that was certified through the state as an apprenticeship program. And in the history of Syracuse, we have one skilled tradesman that has come through the unions. That is a direct issue with what is affecting our ability to be able to compete and work on projects. This is a mechanism where we'll be able to address that and build that workforce out by building apprenticeship programs through a collaboration with UMIA.
I'm going to add to that, so thank you. I mean, this is a multi-pronged problem that didn't arise overnight, and we're not going to solve it overnight. What you're hearing are the elements of part of those solutions. One is collaboration across sectors is critically important. And while some of the comments I'll make are not technically going to be funded through the REDC, it's important that we look at the larger picture, and I know who I'm talking to, so as a mayor, a former mayor, you know that. So the partnerships that we're making, for example, with Jubilee Home, where we've gone on the ground with our folks and said, colleges, universities, other sectors, that we're here with you to provide the expertise that we can provide at the table. So job preparation, right? Something that they know much more about than I do. You know, if you go to interview for a job, there's a preparation for that is important, that doesn't happen overnight. And so one of the things that Walt Dixie, who is the leader at Jubilee Homes, asked us to do from the health sector is to address mental health issues and to partner with others who know the workforce and support the workforce. Do we do that with our youth? Okay, we're not talking about it, but we have an epidemic of violent injuries in our communities. We have got to get together to take a look at the multi-pronged solutions to complex problems that took a while to develop and will take a while to address. Folks, youth being at work, you know what I say as a pediatrician? Put them to work. You can't have. Childcare was mentioned, the lack of childcare, the lack of schools that provide opportunity for advancement, making sure that we're invested in all of our children. If you have kids who don't have anything to do in this summer, guess what? They get into trouble. So how do we build that as we're building the workforce and then provide not only the mentorship in their programs, mentorship programs, apprenticeship, and then opportunities throughout that and opportunities once you enter the workforce to then, and we've talked about this in the council, to then continue up that ladder, right? It doesn't matter where you enter that workforce, do you have the opportunity? So that I think we can develop the solutions that are complex, that address this complex problem and take the time to measure. So I think we're on the way to doing that in providing the kinds of vision that we talked to you about. So thank you for the question. It's an important one.
Thank you. Roberta?
So thank you very much. And again, congratulations. We'll miss you, Rob, but I know you won't be far.
I'll still be around.
Oh, no.
And
we're
we have
not
Randy to
letting him
beat up
go.
on, so, you know, it's a great switch. This was a great presentation, and you've obviously done a tremendous amount of work, and thank you very much for the answer to Matt's question, because you stole my question. You know, I always ask you about workforce development and how you're looking at it. I know that as I go around the state, the single thing I hear more than anything else is if we're not able to identify a talented workforce, we're not going to come to New York. Because you're right, it's not about cheap labor anymore. There are a myriad of reasons why people live and work in New York State. The talent of your workforce, of your local workforce, is absolutely the fulcrum on which a lot of these businesses make the decision. I'm thrilled to see the variety of training programs that are here. One of the questions I have is identifying skill sets, not job titles, but actual skill sets,
that's right.
discrete skill sets, and how do you match the skill set that an employer needs? How do you find the candidates for the training, and how do you measure the outcome? I mean, there's so much measurement that needs to happen, and are they credentialed? Is this a transferable skill set? What I like about what you're doing is that it's employer driven, that the businesses have said, we need this. So that's great. Is the workforce able to transfer outside of that employer, or are they captive solely to that employer?
It's a great question. I think you know, we are doing some pioneering work here in the region. A number of these workforce programs. The one I'm the most familiar with is the Work Train program that we work with directly at Center State CO. And the reality is that some of those programs are not credentialed, or they come with a de facto certification. They participate in a program, acquired some skills, but it's certainly not a certification in the traditional sense. It's not an accredited degree-bearing program, and in some cases, our opinion is that that's okay. That in fact, in some cases, those requirements that employers often put on their sort of human resource restrictions actually impede their ability to reach into a broader and more diverse labor pool. What we've been able to do via the Work Train program, and others have also done throughout this region, is to put a focus on helping employers assess the skills that are necessary to perform a job function, right? Not what we think a degree translate, but the specific skills, as you know, and also provide the same types of assessments for individuals. What skill sets that they have, that they experience in their daily lives that are transferable to multiple industry sectors, and using those two assessments as a way to create qualified candidate pools and then targeted training programs. What we're finding through our experience, I think we've placed over 675 people through the Work Train program over the course of the last 5 years. What we're finding is a significantly higher retention rate, in some cases over 85%. What we're finding, I think the most recent statistic I recall is that of the 675 people that we have placed, over 85 or 90 of them have had criminal convictions historically. And those are people that would almost never even be able to interview for a job, let alone get a job and retain a job going forward. We think that a lot of the work that needs to take place here is just simply better dialogue between employers that are desperate for skills and talent and people, and people who have skills and talent but who have historically been excluded from having access to that opportunity. Those are really difficult conversations. We have great community partners that are leading the way, and so far our early results are pretty successful.
Just to add one thing to that, the RFP that you mentioned, Ricky mentioned, the Alliance for Economic Development, it also is important in how, in terms of recruiting applications for the monies that are available to help folks in terms of training, et cetera, that we actually write those RFPs correctly and we have the right people at the table, and then we provide the technical assistance for folks to do this. The reason that is that you can push strategic partnerships that align, for example, on many colleges and educational venues to develop those skill sets and then match them to what you want to do. So that takes some intentionality to really be intentional about that and take a look at that workforce development. And I think we can do that, okay? But you've got to seek it out, you've got to recognize it, and then you've got to award those particular things that provide technical assistance so people are successful in their applications. Did you have?
Yeah, I wanted to say, and you and I have talked about this quite frequently,
Right.
a model that we're developing here over the last year for growing our own apprentices within companies, and for small, medium-sized companies, that now is going to be being spread through Rochester, Hudson Valley, and throughout the state this coming year. And that's because of the close work that you've had with us and the community, really employer-driven approaches, which say, how do we get them the training while they're there? And then we'll have entry-level opportunities, back to the programs that were just mentioned. So and then we'll have a chance for them to step into entry-level and to have a glide path. As you know, the apprenticeship approach allows people to start at $12, $15 an hour, and they'll be at $25 to $28 an hour in 3 to 4 years, guaranteed as a part of apprenticeship approach. So I encourage you to continue to work with businesses in our communities. I think those are the kind of approaches, innovative approaches, Rob's talked about those as well, that we have to do in order to break through this challenge.
Yeah, I think just very quickly, the apprenticeship model, one of the things that's so empowering about it is it actually reaches into communities who feel hopeless.
Yes.
And show them that their own people succeed at it.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Donna Ricardo, please.
Sure. Well, thanks, everybody. That was really a great presentation. I'm very impressed by your enthusiasm and how much has come of all this over the number of years that we've been at it. Congratulations, Rob. Your work has been very, very well received and appreciated, and congratulations, Mayor. I've got a couple of questions for Ricky. I'm interested in the Upstart program in particular and how you are recruiting those individuals, and just a little bit about the pipeline through that program. But before that, to Rob's point about the poverty statistics, to what extent is the Regional Council engaged with the Anti-Poverty Initiative, the ESPRI program? I would really like to know how those are being meshed, because that, I think, will improve what you're doing as well. So, Ricky, the two things on that, the integration,
Absolutely.
but also the Upstart.
Sure. I've been under the gun all day with this that timer, haven't I? Let's see if I can speak fast enough to that. I had the fortune of actually being on the ground organically in recruiting for the Upstart program. As the doctor alluded to, that was intentional in terms of my involvement of going out specifically in recruiting from neighborhoods of color, involving entrepreneurs of color, In February or so, there was a spirited discussion in this community about inclusion, economic inclusion, and I think that sparked a lot of conversation in the community. There was a lot of engagement around there. So not only was my engagement intentional, it was multiplied by the effect of all the other network of folks that were involved in. So Jubilee Homes, Southwest Community Center, Center State CEO, a number of organizations have been involved intentionally in going out to recruit specifically from those neighborhoods. Ultimately, what our goal is and what my goal would be, entrepreneurship provides a pathway to wealth building for my community. As I look directly at what some of the statistics are and what the poverty statistics in particular for black and brown folks, that is unacceptable for me and many of the other leaders in my community. So yes, and so in terms of even the engagement of the folks that are around the table, I have to comment here as both the executive director, but I want to comment as a citizen. Rob Simpson has done a tremendous job as a leader in this community in making sure that my community is engaged. That has been a very concerted effort to have a conversation around how we can be included in that conversation. I do not think I can leave this room today and emphasize enough of how much of an impact he's had on there. So for the first time, we've gotten $16 million worth of consolidated funding applications went through this summer in particular that my community would have never had their hands on. That technical assistance was provided by Center State CEO. Rob was answering phone calls at midnight, 12:30 at night. We only had one project that was not through. See? Yeah, they get that phone number, right?
That's good to
So
know.
this was a very, very, I have to say at the end of the day, when you make an intentional effort, these are the results that you're going to get on the other end of there. So to address that directly, that's been an intentional effort. We still continue to cultivate opportunities through other organizations. We'll look to continue to build that network. We are going to apply through the Alliance of Economic Inclusion for some funding to support that project. And further, you ask how that is engaged. I'm engaged as a community member and both as an executive in a number of those initiatives. I'm also a mayoral appointee on that Alliance for Economic Inclusion, making sure that we have inclusiveness around the table. Last thing I will note to that is that's been the other thing with Center State is reaching out and making sure that there are decision makers around the table so that they affect the perspectives that are around the table in terms of our economic strategies.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask a quick question. I'm the Commissioner of the Office of General Services, and I'm proud to be the home of Governor Cuomo's the Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Business Program. And as you know, in many of the communities, our veterans are sometimes part of the poverty issue in the region, but entrepreneurship is very important. So can you just touch very quickly about how you've integrated veterans? I know you've done some good programming here, Rob, or whoever wants to answer it, but veterans using veteran-owned businesses. We have a certified program that is now online at OGS. This is a public service announcement. But we have a searchable certified business website on our website, and we encourage a lot of people, even in the private sector, to use the veteran-owned businesses that are certified in the state. But Governor Cuomo is very strongly supportive of making sure that our veterans are part of this conversation. So would you like to just comment, Ricky?
I'll touch base just a little bit. I know as part of some discussions I'm having with a community partner and Center State CEO, as a matter of fact, we are very, very keen and concentrating on involving that service disabled veteran component as well as the MWBE component. So currently we're negotiating, and that will come out later, but we're negotiating some involvement with there. So it's very intentional that and the region that we cover is not just central New York. So we expand as far as Rochester all the way over to Albany, and as far as Binghamton and up north in the North Country. So that is an intentional effort to be involved along with our minority and women-owned business enterprises.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Yes.
I can add a little bit. It's a little bit peripheral to your question, but it addresses it. So we have great expertise here within Syracuse with the Veterans Administration right here. And I can tell you from SUNY Upstate, which is the largest employer, that we actually have a real pipeline and 109 positions of our residents in the medical field being at the VA. So there are real opportunities to take a look at that, and we have a new dean for the College of Medicine, which is specifically targeting a new track that we will release with respect to veterans, encouraging veterans to come through the pipeline in terms of health professions, which is a whole host of health professions, from medicine to nursing to college of health professions that have 10 or 11 different departments. So that's a little peripheral to what you're saying, but you have to create that pipeline to be able to take a look at the other aspects in terms of veteran-owned businesses. But we are in strong support of that. It can be a good partner.
Thank you.
I think the final point on that, certainly as you all are aware, Syracuse University has played a pretty significant role in this space as well. Have a project that was recommended as part of the Upstate Revitalization Initiative for the National Veterans Resource Complex. And they're providing a tremendous amount of service on entrepreneurship, but along a whole host of issues for our veteran population here, not only in the region but around the country. And we're excited to hopefully see that project move forward in very short order.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. You've been terrific. Let's have a round of applause for the